Hi folks, how are you doing? Welcome to another video in the movie review channel. To be honest, this movie cannot be seen by any audience, unless you have an intellectual and different face. A controversial but original work where the young director shows that it is still too early to attribute a single style to him and attach the label of a filmmaker to him. Ari Aster's latest film has something to laugh at and something to be scared of. But can it be called a horror comedy? At the beginning of this review, I raised the question whether BEAU is Afraid as Ari Aster's third feature film is a horror film or a comedy. The best answer I can give is yes and no. When you describe a movie as a horror comedy, you usually think of something like Swan Dies or The Cabin in the Woods. Maybe even Ghostbusters on the more comedy-oriented end of the spectrum, or possibly Get Out or American Psycho on the horror-oriented side. But BEAU is Afraid doesn't really fit into any of those categories. There are enough jokes in the film to describe it as a comedy, but it's too disturbing to pass as a horror, and the scary moments are so absurd that it even mocks being a comedy at times. So if I were to pin this seemingly indefinable film to a genre, I would define BEAU is Afraid as a cinema of anxiety along the lines of Coen brothers' A Serious Man or Uncut Jewels. Of course, this effect has been taken to more extremes. Ari Aster's film represents 3 non-stop hours of stress, neurosis, and family and legacy trauma that distracts the audience with elements of self-deprecating humor and surrealism, but is essentially structured to make you feel bad. As a result, it is as easy to admire the incredible artistic effort that Ari Aster himself put into the film that you will never want to watch it again. An Odyssey-like journey to nowhere. The plot of BEAU is Afraid can be described as a series of episodic stories that all stem from Beau Wasserman's journey to attend the funeral of his abusive mother, Mona. Mona is a successful businesswoman whose company manufactures a range of specialty products. Beau, on the other hand, lives in a horrible apartment where he can barely do anything, but is afraid to leave. The opening scene in which Beau's character leaves his apartment for the first time is a satirical caricature of every anxieties about city life. Too many guns on the street to scare liberals, socialist billboards to scare conservative, lack of personal space for introverts, and murders. A nude serial that runs around to scare everyone. This first act introduction of the main character is probably the most effective sequence and good moment of the work in terms of pure dark comedy. But everything that happens after that has no understandable meaning and concept. And that's what Ari Aster wants. Though that's probably not what most moviegoers are looking for. But considering the feeling of fear as the driving force of the story, it must be accepted that when fear becomes the axis of rotation of the world, it also becomes the norm of life at the same time. And yes, Ari Aster follows the same thread until the end. In the 3 hours of the film, Beau is placed in different situations that could well make an anthology of short horror films. These narrative episodes differ even in tonality, embedded thoughts, and directing techniques. This alone is one of the commendable points in directing the work. Aster seems to be looking at the cinema of Charlie Kaufman and trying to stage surreal and strange situations that resonate in the cinema of that New York filmmaker. But where Kaufman seeks an absurdity to create a conviction, Aster instead loses a sense of proportion and thus adds situations with unbridled excess without organically moving forward with the work's story. And this is the colorful and sometimes formless delirium. Therefore, my feeling is that outside of the language of the genre, Ari Aster has lost the reins of her narrative, thus giving free rein to her imagination, thereby ruining her work. Such a film is interesting at first glance, but behind the scenes it is chaotic. All in all, in the age where filmmakers primarily get things done, it is thrilling to watch an artist given the freedom to let every sick thought in his brain slowly spill out for nearly 3 hours. BEAU is Afraid may not be a horror film in the same sense as a Hereditary and Midsommar, but it is a different kind of horror film, one that challenges, alienates, and pushes people out of their comfort zones. This work may be dirty and unpleasant, but like the work of Charlie Kaufman or David Lynch, its presence enriches the cinematic landscape. BEAU is Afraid is a well-made film in all technical aspects. Cinematography and editing are magnificently intertwined to create true Hollywood magic. One of my favorite parts of the film was going through fixed shots that are changed using subtle or slight character movements that evoke powerful emotions. There are also animated transitions that use color to enhance frames. The visual jumps from one shot to another are also beautiful in this film. There are so many incredible shots that really add depth to each scene. Plus, the set design is brilliant and full of clues to a pointless mystery. On the other hand, in some moments, the sound design and engineering causes discomfort to the audience. This means that sometimes the sound enhances the visual effects, at other times it completely contrasts them. In general, there is deliberately uneven rhythm in everything, which disturbs the audience mentally and emotionally. But the main performance of the film is also for Joaquin Phoenix himself. This talented actor is an absolute force in Ari Aster and deliver a decent performance. Watching him endure the film's escalating insanity is absolutely gut-wrenching. Phoenix immediately draws the audience in from the start, and through every harrowing thing that happens to BEAU in the film, he maintains that charm in his performance until the end. However, as incredible as Phoenix's performance is, his game consists of a consistent performance. This consistency means that Joaquin Phoenix plays all the angles of his character, but this game is based on one thing only, and that is the fear and neurosis of BEAU's character. Innumerable forms of physical and mental suffering are brought to BEAU, each worse than the last, and this repetition of fear and stress in Phoenix's performance, despite his good performance, is repeated from the middle of the film to the end. What remains is a surprising and sometimes a scary but unstable experiment, and Joaquin Phoenix, now a master of portraying unstable characters, proves once again that he is one of the greatest actors alive. To be honest, this movie cannot be seen by any audience, unless it has a phase of enlightenment and being different. BEAU is Afraid is a movie that is extremely complicated and doesn't really care about the feelings of the viewer. Ari Aster just hides behind a story about a man who is afraid of everything in the world, actually biting into the essence of human emotions and touching everything that hurts in the soul. However, few sequences, especially in the first hour, can maintain a good feeling for the duration of 3 hours, and the biggest obstacle of this film to its greatness is that time, which is too long. Regularly changing the scene and secondary characters helps to keep the atmosphere interesting and keep the movie from being boring. However, all the variety cannot change the fact that the personality of BEAU is not unique, and just 3 hours to see the world through a defined and depressing perspective eventually loses its initial exciting freshness and ultimately you as the audience. You feel that watching Joaquin Phoenix's role as BEAU is something of a chore, with these interpretations as ambivalent as my personal feelings about BEAU is Afraid. But I feel that such ambivalence is Aster's intended response to this strange film, and it is challenging. In a simple view, this is a dream piece of cinema that achieves its ambitious goals with first-class artists behind and in front of the camera. But whether this particular vision is what you or I as an audience want to experience is another story. Thank you guys for watching the video until the end. For supporting us, please like, comment and subscribe channel.